Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness Happiness Hour for August. We're in August now, right? Yes. Wow, time is flying. This month we are so excited to welcome a very good, very old friend of ours, Marco Santini. Marco is an artist. He is a thought leader. He is a mentor, and he is somebody who has found a way to take positivity, creativity, innovation, and art and bring them together in a way that he is bringing more joy, more beauty, more wonder and awe to the world, and really is someone who I think exudes the way that we can find a way to live with purpose and live in a way that aligns our innermost self with what we do and what we create and what we bring into the world. Marco, I want to thank you so much for joining us and for being here tonight to give us some insight on your work and how you got here and what it is like for you to live a purpose-driven life.
You are awesome. Thank you for having me. I have thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you guys during COVID and the Happiness Hour and Goodness Network and everything you guys are doing. I'm just super grateful to know you and to be part of this. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. So, Marco, I'll let you open it up here and tell people who aren't familiar with your work a little bit about what you do and the kind of things that you're putting out into the world, because I think they're absolutely spectacular.
Thank you. My name is Marco Santini. I'm an artist, mentor, and inventor based in New York City. I found my life's purpose to spread love and positivity through art and education, which I've been doing for the last 3 years, really through art, murals, collaborations with brands, live painting, charity partnerships, and also mentoring middle school, high school, and college students with everything from ACT, SAT, college prep to also personalized, helping them find internships and clubs and creating websites and doing kind of more purpose-driven projects. So through all of that, I've been trying to live my most authentic self of spreading love and positivity in a bright and colorful way.
I absolutely love that. So I was wondering, Marco, can you run us down and just show us some of your work? I know that you are currently in your studio. If you wouldn't
Yes.
mind, I know that we are getting a background tour. I've gotten it before, but I think it's absolutely phenomenal.
This could be a quick little tour. So I do live in my art studio, which is I find really powerful because if I get the call at midnight or crazy hours, I will be able to answer that call. And it's also just a really inspiring place to be covered in words of positivity and love in many languages and different projects I've been working on. So I can point out a few pieces here. My whole life started, well, my life didn't start, but my art life started with this idea of my One Love logo. I studied linguistics in college, and a few years back, I was very curious about what all the words of love would look like together. It was 2018, politically, culturally, economically, things were kind of up and down in the city, and I wanted to kind of create something that really unified us. So I created this One Love logo. It now has the word love in over 80 different languages, meant to symbolize that there's more that unites us than divides us. So Turkish will be next to Armenian, Arabic will be next to Hebrew, English is now next to Russian, and it's just this idea that despite all of our differences, we still have this common shared belief that we can use to realize that there's more that unites us and divides us. So I do that I'll surround that with words that clients give me of names, streets, cities, sports teams, pet names. But that's one of my, really started my career and has since become a really great way to work with clients. My most meaningful piece right here, just a few pieces. So this is called Love Your Body. This has the word, first time I actually painted the word love in over 100 languages. And it's meant to symbolize that despite your shape, your asymmetry, your size, whatever, if you can love yourself and be true to who you are and appreciate what you stand for, kind of anything is possible, which is why it's in the primary colors. Super meaningful piece to myself. I do a lot of interactive art, so I will ask people a question, an idea. I'll sit in on a podcast or panel. I did a few of those pieces here. So there was one day where I went to all 5 boroughs in New York City on the subway 2 years ago on July 30th, 2019. So I went in the subway in all 5 boroughs and I asked complete strangers what they love about New York City. And then I painted them on this map, seeing everything from bagels and pizza to nature to Yankees to love to beauty, so job, sandwiches, a good range of what New Yorkers stand for. I do a lot of magazine collages for businesses, for clients who have been featured in a magazine. Rather than just like kind of framing their article on the cover, I make an art piece out of it where I take every single page from the article and I collage it so in context, because one of my mantras is that we are more than our superficial cover or more than our superficial selves, or all the layers and pages within. So with this, I really try to bring out the soul of the magazine and showcase the story within the story and really bring it about. So it's an art piece that can share, a really meaningful moment there, which I love. And the last piece I'll show you is actually really exciting. So my biggest mural to date, I've done about 20 different painting activations with Bloomingdale's throughout the country, which is a really interesting story. But last year during COVID, they boarded up their windows in Soho. And because we'd had such a great relationship, they gave me creative freedom to paint whatever I wanted there. And I painted this mural of appreciation for first responders and essential workers with really colorful designs, positive messages, love in many languages. But then right after George Floyd's death, during the Soho protests, a cop car was burned down right in front of the mural. And a photograph of that mural, this like iconic image of like love and positivity and bright colors juxtaposed with the intensity and the fight for justice and equality, was actually on the front page of the New York Times for 3 days, saying like, watch what happens live in the protests. Even though they wouldn't credit me, which was annoying, I messaged like everyone there, but it was still kind of cool. My friend actually made me a model of the design. So it was like this little cop car, which is really cool. But then what I've just started doing is, so these panels have been circling the country as kind of a method of appreciation. And so I've been cutting them all up into their unique shapes and kind of showcasing them for their beauty. We have mental health, we have mind, body, soul here. My favorite, we have together this high piece, and then this love yourself one that was actually broken into 2 boards. And then I put it together, and I thought that was so powerful because it was actually on 2 boards and it was apart, and then it had to be put back together. And I just felt like this really beautiful meaning of like loving yourself and appreciating, all despite the struggles and such. So that is a brief mini tour. I do a lot of wedding paintings. This was my wife and I, but couples or anniversary gifts or ideas, people will send me a really meaningful photo or a wedding photo, and then I'll hide words that are important to the couple in there. But just a brief little tour. It's definitely a fun and inspiring space, and I love being surrounded by these positive vibes that just kind of seep into my soul every day when I get up and get ready to create.
Oh, I love that. So I want to back it up. I love your work. I think there's something so wonderful and so approachable and so lovely about the color and the language and the way that it sort of reflects back at us. And I want to start out because I know you've got this like fascinating story of how you ended up an artist. I know that could you give us a little background on how you ended up with this incredible world? I know that you didn't start there.
That's correct. So I've always considered myself a creative experimenter, and I was very lucky to live in a really awesome house. My dad is an architect, a really modern architect. My mom was a choreographer and dancer for plays and things. And so it was a very creative household. And from an early age, I think one of their really strong points that I always give them credit for was that they never really asked me what I was doing. They would ask me why I was doing something. And it really kind of made me think at an early age, like, why am I throwing paint over there? Or like, why am I mixing these things or building this? And so that got me from an early age thinking about it. But I was always experimenting, I was always creating, but I never really thought art could be a career because it just seems so foreign and impossible. And for me, my journey, I went to Brown University, which is right next to RISD, and I was like, could have taken classes there, and I feel like I wasn't mature enough to do that. But I befriended a lot of kids there and learned a lot of techniques. And I was not mature enough to hear like criticism or critique, but I was like really open-minded to try new things and learn from people in like a comfortable atmosphere. I worked in marketing and branding. I worked at the Olympics in 2006 in Torino and 2008 in Beijing with NBC. I did marketing and branding, and that was very much testing my creativity. But my art journey really started when I kind of put it on myself to I challenged myself anytime I would buy a gift for someone, for a wedding, a housewarming, a birthday, anytime I'd have to spend money at a store, at a clothing, whatever, I invested that in myself and said, how could I make something unique for this person, especially if it's a friend, a family member, like I know them really well. What could be a one of one gift that would be meaningful? And it just challenged me to go in different directions. And it eventually took on the wedding paintings, kind of the first real creation of mine that had demand. Like I started doing them for my friends, and then someone would see it at a house, like, oh, my friend's getting married, can you do one for me? Or like, I would love to get an anniversary present, like how can we make this happen, like big surprise. And so I was like, oh wow, people want my art, like that's really cool. So I kind of started doing it through there. And then when I tapped into my linguistic anthropology background and created this one love language, one love design, uh, I realized that people reacted to it in a way unlike anything, any reaction to any of my other artwork. So yes, the wedding paintings were very special because they were specific to, two people, or family portraits are really important to those people. But creating something that was important on a bigger scale, this one love design, I showed a few people after I created it. And there was something there, I just realized the way people were talking about it and interested in it, that really kind of sparked it. And so my first thought was make a bunch of stickers and put up these posters and stickers illegally as far and wide as I could find them in New York City. And I put my Instagram handle on it because I wanted to be found. I wanted people to understand it. And, it could have been a way for police to track you or to get in trouble or fined, but I was very much like behind the message. I was like, this is worth being up there. It's worth being seen and seeing these languages together and seeing the heart. I did like, I heart Soho, I heart Fidei, I heart Williamsburg, like all these different boroughs. It was kind of this like borough appreciation. And from there, within a few weeks, people were asking me to paint at their weddings, at their charities, at their schools, at their events. And it kind of became this really fascinating, business card of like what people kind of associated with it. And it was a very scary time to jump from like, 9 to 5 marketing, business, branding, strategy world, and having these titles and different, accolades and such. But I felt like I wasn't, my heart wasn't in it because I mean, my heart was in the creativity, but I wasn't authentically pushing and creating for something I believed in with certain products or certain stores or venues. Like I really didn't relate with that. And then when I turned that into, being able to spread love and positivity, it's just like everything just clicked. And it's been a wonderful ride so far.
That's incredible. So I want to back it up. Like, where did your love of language come from? Because that's such a huge part of your story. I mean, of the power of your work is really language. And I'd love to know a little bit about what fascinates you about language. What got you interested in language and linguistic anthropology in the first place?
Absolutely. I've been fascinated with communication, I
Mm,
think, my entire life, because I feel like everything is a way of communicating, like our body language, colors, designs, architecture, our parks, like the way we look at each other, the way we sit, like everything is a way of communicating. And one of my biggest lessons in the art world is that I view art as a storytelling mechanism. It's a way to
mm,
communicate, and it really is sharing a story that can then be translated. But I think specifically with language, I mean, taking that interest, like there's curiosity, there's creativity, and collaboration. I call it the 3 C's. And so I was always very interested in it. And it wasn't until I read this article that I was just fascinated with like all the different calligraphy strokes of so many different languages. I wanted to see how all the languages stacked up. And it was that one night, like, catching lightning in a bottle, where I just wrote down as many languages as I knew, with the word love. And then I went to Google Translate and filled out this sheet. And I was just so amazed that so many different marks and angles and shape sizes could come together to say the same thing. And I just kind of went down this deep rabbit hole of creativity and seeing where it could take me. And I just felt like it was jam packed with this meaning. I mean, you look at my earlier work, and it's very apparent I was very influenced and very impacted by the work of Keith Haring. I think he's a
yeah.
genius. I think he was able to communicate very simply and quickly very meaningful ideas. And that was because he didn't use language mostly. He did the man, the baby, the dog, like these ideas that could very simply be communicating major themes. And I kind of wanted to push that to this other extreme. Like, what would it be like if many languages came together and you didn't necessarily need to know that it was what it was to be able to appreciate it. I've come to hear a lot that my work is kind of this like Where's Waldo of art, where the more you look, the more you see, and it's just a heart, and then you look by and it's like, oh well, there's my language of love, and like, oh, there's another one, and it brings in and allows this conversation for people to have with my work when I'm not there. And it's not just hearts, but like specifically within that example, I mean, I've had modern version. You can see the shirt I'm wearing, and even earlier today I was painting a mural in Brooklyn, and I hide words and just positive messaging in there, because my big mantra of mine is we are our diet is more than what we eat. It's everything we
Mm.
surround ourselves with, the colors, the shapes, the words, the messaging, the books, the news, everything that we let into our body affects who we are, what we do, and how we see the world. And so I believe filling it with color and positivity wins out.
I love that. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the way that language and the language you use shapes how we see the world. Like, do you think there is a connection to that, or have you seen there being a connection,
The way that language helps us shape the world. I think that
or
when
shapes how we see the world? Perhaps
Yeah,
is a better way of
I mean,
asking that.
I've been thinking a lot about that in terms of how social media has helped us shape the world, and having like-minded friends and like only seeing certain perspectives. And I think with my work, I try to stay apolitical, but I try to open people's minds. I mean, I think
Mm,
when I see someone who's Turkish and Armenian looking at it, and I tell them that their language is next to the opposing language, it really takes them back. But then most of the time they'll nod or appreciate, like, oh wow, okay, like it's kind of this vote of confidence that we can coexist.
mm,
Same with Arabic and Hebrew. And I think that language has helped, specifically answer your question. I think language has helped shape the world because I think we all use language in some way. And I think I've specifically tried to use it to communicate positivity, but I've also used it in a way where I can help anyone to tap into their creativity, which I really love. So when I go
mm,
to schools or I do corporate events, and I would go into boardrooms and get people to, I've never been an artist. I can't draw. That's okay. Like, let's start with language. Everyone can start with language as a way of kind of getting into flow, I believe, and getting them to write down their favorite words or to kind of create markings around that. And it bridges the gap, I feel, between communication and art, where really they're one and the same.
yeah. So I'm wondering, let's see, I'm wondering, like, when you go into schools and you watch people start to unlock this creativity, are they what are you I'm sure there's a dynamic that you're seeing with people that starts to do you think it starts to bring people together or see each other kind of on common ground? Does it unlock something even within their community and themselves?
Absolutely. I find that by bringing people in to either create a unified art piece together or to have them create amongst other people who are creating, definitely brings people together. I mean, I think the collaborative nature, like for one example, there was a teacher in Chicago who saw my artwork on Instagram. She loved that I was hiding positive words and messages of love in the artwork. She used that as a basis for their school play one year. So she made the backdrop with the hills and the sky and everything, but then they hid words of positivity in that based on my art. And I was so honored by that they ended up flying me out and putting me up, and being able to talk to them. But then I made these collaborative art pieces with all the students, and they were very young. I think it was like first grade to sixth grade or something like that. And at first, like, everyone just wanted to write their name as big as possible, right? And they had these big, young ideas. And then I was like, no, we're all working together, and like, we're going to start it, then we're going to pass it to them, and we're going to kind of, and they're like, oh, and just like you see that it's like it's in everyone's best interest to work together. I feel like, you know, pushing the mind in different creative ways can really, really, really help that. And at
Mm,
live events, when I'm doing that, and I'm asking people, what does love mean to you? Or how do you complete the phrase I am? Or what does this brand or what does this idea mean to you? Very often it's a very fresh and new question they may not have really answered recently or ever. I mean, I ask people what love means to them, and they stop me on the street or they stop me at an event. They're like, what? And it's just like, they're like, wait, let me think about this. And I often don't write the same word twice. So if they've been there, toward the end, they have to think about it, and really kind of pushes them in terms of their creativity. But in them being part of the creative process and having their word, they're so engaged. They're more likely to photograph it and share it, and they're just to know that they are physically part of it. And I think a lot of that, the more I'm I've been reminiscing, I think a lot of that ties back to my linguistic anthropology roots of like just being curious about groups of people, how we communicate, how we come together, and to bring people together for a shared good, shared common good. People walking by in the street when I'm painting a live piece like that, um, they didn't know that they would be part of that day. It's kind of catching them off guard. They're going through this kind of mini creative assignment. They're part of it, but then everyone who I talked to on that day is captured into this painting, and their energy like lives on. I love
One of the I'll let you pop the headphones back in, no worries. Um, Sometimes we just get so excited by our work, our
Very
headphones have to
exciting.
go. I'm wondering, one of my favorite projects that you did was that I've like seen live because there's a great videography of it is that the painting you showed us of your trip around New York. And one of the things I love about that is the way in which it seems to make people, even if they're having like a bad day, it made them like suddenly like have to think of something that they loved about their city. And I really encourage everybody to go watch. We have an article about the piece on Ever Widening Circles. The way that people's faces kind of changed. And I'm wondering if, I know that's probably not edited to just do that, but I'm wondering how often you saw that day people's the way they walked through the world to shift ever so slightly in person, just by being triggered to ask what they loved about a place, as opposed to letting that sort of negative spiral keep going in their heads if that's what's playing.
Absolutely. I think New York is a beautiful place that gets a worse rap for being the best of all worlds. And I think when I did that and I do different interactive live events in New York City, you're initially met with skepticism, but then you see, me walking up with like a heart t-shirt asking you a positive theme question, and you're not like, being punked or being, in some like bad situation or being asked for money. People, it like changes whatever their mindset or their feeling or their balance was before that. It kind of just shifts them a little bit more positive after the interaction. It's like all those little changes in 1%, if you will, if you add those all up, like makes for such a better day, a better community, a better everything. And it's just really awesome to see them thinking about it, wanting to be part of it, and really like appreciating the space, the creative positive space that I've opened up for them.
That's really incredible. I'm wondering, as someone who's found, I think really has, as a great example, someone who's found their purpose in life. I mean, what kind of advice do you have for people that are in search of like finding purpose and meaning in their life and trying to sort of align that purpose and feeling of meaning with what they do and what they put out in the world?
Huge topic, and I think very important. I think not everyone has a tried and true huge purpose. I think that you can have purpose in each of your individual tasks.
Mm,
Like I can have purpose as a parent, I can have a specific purpose in my job, I can have a specific purpose for today to get this done. I think that I'm very lucky that my purpose kind of is this umbrella where all the other ideas kind of fit into. And the more I've talked to people about this specific topic, the more I realize that it's not tried and true or easily set up in a way where everyone has the same idea of purpose. So just kind of understanding the broad range of it initially, I think is really important. But I think for me, it was definitely being surrounded with really encouraging friends and family, and realizing that it didn't matter if I failed. It didn't matter if, I didn't do something. It was kind of the positive atmosphere and encouragement that I could express myself and learn and feel anything I wanted to. And I
mm,
felt that was so empowering to be in this open, creative, positive space. I wanted to create that for other people.
mm.
And my family and friends were really, really, and my wife, hugely uh, important in that quest. It was eye opening, and it was really mixing. The common answer, I think, and I think there is a lot of truth in, is like, what do you love to do? Like, what can you get lost in? I remember at
Mm.
an early age thinking like, I really love putting things together. And I remember telling that to one of my friends when I was, I don't know, maybe early 20s. And she's like, how are you going to make a career out of putting things together? Like that was such a broad and random thing. And I was in the moment, I was expressing like, I just love collage, or love, the idea of like giving new life to things and putting them around, and creating something new with all these objects. And I couldn't say like, I want to be a collage artist, like I'm going to do this, but I felt this really unique interest, and like I could sit with magazines and papers and all different textures and ideas, and just sort through and organize and figure out how I thought they could fit together. And so that has since expanded to art and all its creative mediums. But for me, I can get absolutely lost in what I do, to the point where I'm, sprinting for hours through my creativity, not going to the bathroom, not eating, losing track of time. It's something that I just absolutely love and feel very lucky that I get to create for a living and actually get paid to do it, which is wonderful. The thing that I tell though to young artists who are interested, or at least young creatives, I found a lot of luck in giving the customized gifts to people and kind of
Mm,
spreading my message and art out there to see, to kind of gauge the interest. I mean, I wanted to, in an ideal way, share something that's true to myself that hopefully people would like. And that did happen, but there is this essence of, a collaboration. I very often talk about collaborating with clients and friends and everyone as this tango. Like sometimes I lead,
mm,
sometimes you lead, but it's kind of this flow between. It can't be 100% either direction. Otherwise, it doesn't really work in at least a collaborative sense. So I think that being able to take chances, being able to experiment, being able to see different ideas and lifestyles. I know even just coming out of college, I had a very narrow mindset of, of what work and what career really meant, in terms of it had to be a 9 to 5, it had to be in one of these major fields, it had to involve, doing this with school and doing this beyond. And I think there's just so many possibilities of what we can do and how we can share our interests. And even if you look at, and the digital rise of the NFTs and seeing how artists, in many ways, if you're interested in art, you can create fashion, right? You can create furniture, you can create art pieces that live on your wall, you can create graphic designs that can then be one or all of those. You can, it just, there's so many different like interesting small iterations of like taking an interest, like a core creativity path, and seeing all the ways it can go out. So I'm a huge fan of people trying to figure out what they love to do, and not, I think, being fearless in their pursuit of and honest with themselves of what they really really love.
I love that. That's something that I'm finding more and more. Um, More and more people are saying when we ask them that purpose-driven question. Um, I'm gonna get into some questions now because there's been quite a few. Linda's put quite a few out there, but Dr. Linda asks, does Marco have any tips on mustering up the courage to put your creative work out there? I know it's something I super duper struggled with early on in the writing forever widening circles
We
journey.
are all artists. You must be fearless in your approach. I think getting it out there, like sitting down and creating art, is the hardest part. Like going from 0 to 1, like once you get going, you just, it's, I find it to be so fun and so freeing and so thought provoking. And whether you listen to music or a podcast or your thoughts, like it's just, it's a beautiful time to be creating and alone. But yeah, I think we all in some ways go through fears of what it would be like if my idea is out in the world. And um, I think there are certain ways to put it out there, maybe to your closest friends, family, partner, your inner circle. um, Putting up stuff on social media is kind of a broader range, and then putting stuff up in public is like the greatest range. But yeah, I think we are all artists because we all have a creative way of turning our thoughts into actions. And I think that is,
Mm,
when I deduce that as creativity, I think we are all artists through that definition. And so however we do that, like however you decide to brush your teeth each day could be creative if you do it differently. Or like however you decide to read the news, like you can kind of reframe everything as a creative approach that you are taking to that specific task. And so when I tell people that, I feel like either they laugh or they kind of think like, oh, all right, maybe like it's not as much of a ledge that I have to jump off of to show my artwork to the world. Like I think it's beautiful that we all create. um, I think it can also be helpful maybe to understand that question in terms of like, what is your purpose with the art? Are you trying to
mm.
sell it to someone else? Are you trying to just put it out there? You're just trying to show that you've mastered a new skill or that you've created something. I really I just think it's healthy to to create in any way that you can. And so uh, Linda, I'm looking forward to seeing your stuff. That's what I more of your stuff, I should say.
She's definitely, I don't know if you know this, Marco, but she does like these giant metal
The
sculptures out of
sculptures, I know, I've seen them
found
burning.
metal.
It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, she and my sisters used to own these, but she's also big fan of your work, and in the creative world. I'm wondering, I love this idea, And I just want to make sure we hit this on the head because I love this idea that you can define that we're all creative in the way that we turn ideas into things in the world, whether you're creative in business, whether you're creative in engineering, whether you're creative in so many different ways. And I love thinking about creativity in those terms because I feel like oftentimes there's like a gate to creativity, right? And that gate to creativity, if you're a creative, like you were saying, keeps you from wanting to put your work out there. But if you understand that everybody is in their own way creative, it's so liberating and wonderful to walk through and appreciate all of the different types of art and artists that are out there, whether it's the skillful way that the person wraps up your sandwich or says hello to you, or I think there's just so many ways that we are artists in what we do. And if we look at it in those terms, wow, the world becomes so much more beautiful if you can look at other people's art in those terms.
Absolutely. I think there's also a part of kind of supporting and appreciating and listen, at the core of it, if you look at it just as, in terms of art creation, like art is subjective. There are going to be people who
Right.
like it and maybe don't, but I think if we are open to that, if we understand that everything can have, multiple perspectives, being able to see it in this opening, freeing way, I really think is healthy and is better for us as a human race to push ourselves into new ways we may never have tried.
I know that Linda mentioned this question at the top before we started recording, but how have you seen creativity or this creative flow change post pandemic as the world opens back up? Have you seen the world of art? I mean, you're in New York City, so you're kind of in the hub of it, but just among your artist friends and the creative world that you're in, what have you seen in the creative world change?
I think there's been a creative explosion going on. I think, like we were saying earlier, there's been this stockpile of art, music, poetry, writing that really was kind of building up during COVID, and people were maybe waiting to launch it when the time was right. And you're seeing that come out now. I think it's difficult to go through a time like COVID and like the protests, at least in the New York City area, and not be affected by them creatively. I think it's really important as an artist to be in touch with yourself, but to be in touch with your community. And I think when that was happening, it was constant inspiration of this is what's going on in the world. How can I use my voice or what I stand for to bring light upon it? So I think, from COVID, being able to work with a few different hospitals and creating different designs for that, to the protests in terms of the strength through love design. That the protests were a really powerful time. There was a lot of interesting street art that happened in New York City, specifically around the boards. There's been a few different art shows that I've even been in where a lot of those boards that were created during the protest, on the boarded up businesses around the city have now been, going into galleries and kind of showing what the time was like. But within that, you see a lot of people fighting for the push for equality and justice and the idea of like, this is what's happening. And if we don't do anything about it, it's going to continue to happen. And so I think it was a lot of a push for positivity, a push for change, a push for justice. And I really took that time to kind of figure out, well, how does love fit into that? Because I was hearing a lot about intensity and fighting and, not necessarily the initial words I would use for my art or my vocabulary, but for me, when I created my strength through love design, it was born out of the idea of like, how do you balance this out? Like, how do you balance fighting for justice and equality with having a positive mindset? Because, I think initially, peace and love is great, but I think it's not always going to get the job done in terms of helping, getting change or awareness. And so I think the intensity matched with it to prove a point, to bring awareness was really important. So, having the fist that I designed with the heart inside it, I felt like was this really good way to balance out those ideas. Even further now, I think with creativity in New York City, it's still exploding because it's like, if you look at 2021, it's really a representation as like almost a mirror of what 2020 was. Like, what did you go through? Where is the change, where you started to where you came out? And so I've seen some really great art and really great artists who've transformed themselves to be inspired by the time, to take up new crafts or new styles or new mediums for their work. But I think creatives who were working at the time and who were just inspired by the events really found new ways of expression that we're all going to benefit from.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen so many people turn to their creative lens on or back on during the pandemic. I know that there's a friend of mine, I knew him from college. He is a musician, and eventually he was like, I want to spread some positivity, just put song requests here. And every day I'll like post a different video of me playing the kazoo or the ukulele, or together the kazoo-ukulele. And I just thought that was such a wonderful thing that this person recognized that their skills and their, something little beautiful that they could bring to their corner of Facebook, could lighten other people's days. And so I was just so, and I thought it was interesting how many Instagram artists came up and how many people were now like putting their work out there that maybe would have never done before. So I really love that idea that 2021 is a reflection of what happened in 2022. I really had not thought about that, but I think it is a really beautiful reflection in many ways. And I thank you for bringing up that point, and it's sort of enlightening me. It's going to make me look at the world around me with different eyes. Um, Another question that we got is, how on the journey to finding your calling, it often begins with embracing curiosity about everything. I was wondering if you could share some of your favorite books, podcasts, or insightful other things that you absorbed throughout the years that have led you to where you are now.
Ooh, great question. Recently I've been on a really big kick of listening to YouTube summaries of really powerful books while I'm
Mm.
painting and while I'm creating. I just read listened to Peter Thiel's 0 to 1 that I really love. Um, have been really inspired by Leonardo da Vinci. I've read his How to Renaissance Man many times. I feel like that's kind of the greatest compliment, is to be kind of creative in many different ways.
Mm.
And I feel like there's never been a mind like him, so I'm always listening to different parts of that. Yeah, I'm like, I want to show you my library here, because I do feel it's important. I love The Artist's Way. I do try to journal almost every single morning. I think that's really important for kind of getting your creativity out there and seeing where you're going to go here. Art Spirit was good. Oh, Vincent van Gogh. I've done a few of his books. I think he's one of the most incredible artists who like really, like, it's kind of interesting to see, like, was he just lazy, or was he a genius? Like the way that he did it, it's just so beautifully done. And like there's so much good stuff about him. It's a range. I'd say most of the stuff I read and listen to is entrepreneurial, with like flares of creativity on it. But I think that really helps me as I'm trying to look at art as a business now, especially with
Mm.
a child on the way, and trying to think about how to make it more serious, more impactful, what I can be doing, different marketing channels to, be bringing in constant business and constant sales to kind of support this life that I've lived here. I'm a big fan of Walter Isaacson. I think he does bios
Yes.
better than everyone in the world. I'm kind of really interested to see if he's going to do Elon Musk's bio, because apparently he only does bios of people who are dead. But I've read almost all of his bios, and I think he does a really great deep dive into just madness and brilliance, and how craziness can kind of pay off in the end, I'd say.
Yeah, no, I strongly suggest, if you guys haven't read the one about, I don't know if you've read the one about Benjamin Franklin, I found really fascinating, and Da Vinci also
Yeah,
was really, really
Da
good.
Vinci and Steve Jobs are probably two of my favorites.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder, I just want to sort of head us in towards, if other people have questions, please put them in the chat. Um, I'm wondering, as you're finding yourself like sort of seeing inspiration in the world, what do you listen to? Are you listening to podcasts as you're creating art? Are you listening to books on tape? Like, are you listening to music? Like, I'm always so curious about what people put in their ears or not, when they're creating. I always find that so fascinating.
I have a few different playlists on my phone. I have I have a chillest playlist, which is kind of a relaxing bohemian kind of feel. I have like a pump up playlist of like my favorite songs of all time that really just get me going, which I'll usually have to have headphones in, because otherwise it gets loud. So those can be ranged. But then I've really, like I said, I think I really love listening to like TED Talks. I love listening to book summaries. I love listening to important advice from really like powerful, meaningful, creative, successful people. Um, so it's really this range of things. I wouldn't say like I'm always doing this one thing. It's kind of based on mood. It's kind of based on inspiration. I did kind of A/B test this concept last week though, and I was like, I've become so interested in the music podcast, listening kind of uh, you know, unattentively, but like seeping in wise. Like I've become so aligned with that the other day I was trying to create without it, and my thoughts were like taking me all these directions, and I kind of
Mm.
realized I couldn't, like, comparing one to the other, I couldn't create as long of a stretch without music interaction in the background as I could when there was.
Huh.
And I was just very fascinated. That was kind of my own realization, like, wow, I really thought I could do it either way. Um, I found myself without music and or without listening to something, I was starting and stopping a lot more.
Hmm.
Like I'd be more likely to check something on my phone, or I'd be more likely to go grab this in the kitchen, or more likely to go stop and try this. But when I'm listening to, to YouTube, I just feel like it's, I'm really kind of listening to the whole piece as a whole. And I'm like, okay, then what's next? Like maybe I might stop in between, but I think they've, for better or worse, learned a lot about me, that they kind of know what I want to listen to, and their recommended section is very, very targeted to what I'm interested in right now. So I do appreciate that.
I love that. I love that. My sister, I think she's with my mom right now, but my sister listens to Harry Potter when she's welding.
Oh wow.
And so like she's listened to all the Harry Potter. She starts anywhere and wherever. And finds that just puts her in the right creative brain set to like get things done. So I'm always interested listening to hear what creatives are putting in their ears and when they're creating.
And to that point, I really, if I'm ever in a funk, I've realized that there are a few things that get me out of a funk. One is like being inspired by other people or other things, and the other thing is helping other people, like picking up the phone
Mm.
and having a great conversation, or thinking like, is there a young artist or someone I can, help out with. But I've realized that also my third point of this is, if I'm ever in a funk, like if I put on my pumped up playlist, like there's something that music does to me that really gets me in there, and I've associated it so much with creating and with getting in the zone, that it's really kind of this almost fail-safe version of, all right, it's time to work, like let's rock.
I love that. I love that. I think I have like a playlist for like working out that always gets me going. So maybe I need my creative playlist now and I'll finally sit down and write that novel that I'm
Yes,
sure I
yes.
keep talking about. We've got one last question here from Ellen, and she says, I'd love to hear about your work in schools. What is it like to help children in the way that you do?
Oh, that's the absolute greatest. I've done, so usually I'll go into a school and I'll teach an art lesson with the kids, and I'll ask them a question, I'll accumulate words, and then either I will paint a mural for them in their school, outside their school, or I'll paint a mural with them, depending on the atmosphere. But I absolutely love it. I realize that a great benefit of life is being able to engage with people of all ages, races, sizes, background. Like I just love a variety. I feel like the younger child variety, if you will, just, they're so inspiring. They're so creative. They're so straightforward. I love their energy. There's so much to appreciate with them, and uh, it's really wonderful. I painted a camp a few weeks ago, and it was outdoors and it was COVID safe, and it was just really great. Like I had a one love piece that I was asking them, what do you love about camp? And then I painted the words around the one love design. And then each of them had this small one love, like black and white design, that they then painted their words and their colors
Oh,
and things. And it was interactive. It was fun. We were doing it together, and like everyone went home with it, and they were just, it was amazing. It was so fun. It was so heartfelt. I really feel like I connected with these kids. And now when they look at this painting, they see their word on this piece, like every day at their camp, they remember like that great day and that fun environment. And like, this is what I love about camp.
I adore that. And I'm so glad that the world gets to have your work. And I'm so glad that you are inspiring young students. I think about those kids when they're our age and my age, and they, either they keep that piece, their mom keeps it, and they find it in their little, um, memory bin when they're getting older and finally going through that tub of stuff, or, even I think about the kids' brains that you unlocked who never thought that they were creative, and here they are helping to create this piece. And I love the thought of the ripple effect that that has created, and the way that your work has impacted young people to feel like they can be a part of the creative process. I think, speaking as a creative, there's nothing more powerful than that than having somebody in the world who shows you that your creativity is worth something, and it can be really powerful. So I want to thank you so much for
Absolutely.
the remarkable work that you do, not only to remind kids, but also us adults that there is beauty and love in the world. Marco,
Yes.
where can we
Thank you.
connect best with your work and keep up with you and your exciting new turns in life?
Thank you. The best places to connect with me are on Instagram. There are three underscores. It's at underscore Marco underscore Santini underscore. And then my website is marco-santini.com. The last piece I will say to working with children, the one piece of advice I always give to kids and subsequently parents and anyone working with kids is make sure that they sign and they put the year on their creation, because it's always awesome to see how they wrote their name or signed their name. And then the year is super important because you can be like, oh, I was 4 or 5, or basically the context of the name and the date say so much to a piece. So always make sure that whatever your kids, your teachers, whatever, I very much believe in that.
All right, sign and date it. I know there was a period where my S was a Z and my E had 4 lines in it.
And it's beautiful.
I know. It looked very much like your artwork. It was sort of, it was something. Well, I want to thank you, Marco, again for joining us, and thank everyone for joining us this month for our happiness hour. This month, our challenge as a community is to do something, a little creative thing every day to help us unlock that part of our brain, so we could work towards being putting more goodness out into the world. Certainly, Marco, you have given us such inspiration today. And for those of you who are also interested, tickets are on sale now for the Conspiracy of Goodness Summit Year 2. Marco was a guest at last year's. He was absolutely incredible. We're really excited to get that event off the ground. And if you sign up early here by August 10th, you'll also get invited to an exclusive workshop with Dr. Linda, the founder of Ever Widening Circles, about the innovator's recipe, which is a really cool way in which we've seen some of the most incredible people, including Marco, have their work not only succeed but thrive and be in it for the long term. So do join us for that event, and please follow Marco on Instagram and check out his website. He's also got some incredible merch there, where if you want a sticker, if you want a t-shirt, if you want a painting on your wall. I know for us, certainly having our goodness is painting on the wall every day becomes like a search and find of positivity whenever we wake up in the morning. So please go check out his work. Marco, thank you so much for being with us this evening.
You're awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you. And everybody, we will see you hopefully for our workshop on July 18th. If that's incorrect, Ellen, correct me in the chat.